Viridian, The Green Guide, written by Clouds, read by Distracted by Books, Chapter 29, Change. Izuku couldn't help flinching slightly as the doctor took a literal power saw to his cast. He was fully capable of running at a villain with nothing but a soup can and a pair of sticks with no problem, but he was scared of a doctor who wasn't even trying to hurt him. What was up with that? Maybe it had something to do with adrenaline? Did people become less afraid during life-threatening situations so they didn't shut down? It only took a few minutes for the doctor to finish cutting off the cast. All right, Midoriya's, you should be good to go. Just be careful in the future, because I don't want to see you back here, okay? Do you really hate me that much? Izuku couldn't help giggling. Doctors show they care by sincerely wishing they never see you again, the doctor said dryly. If a doctor is excited for the next time you end up in their office, find a new doctor. Come on, Izuku, Mom smiled. Let's go. Wait! Izuku bit his lip. Could I keep my cast? The doctor looked mildly surprised, but handed it over without any questions and opened the door for them to leave. Thank you! Izuku smiled and gave a little wave. He and Mom made their way back through the waiting room, and Izuku couldn't hold back a little sigh of relief as soon as they got outside. Glad that's over? Mom said with a smile. Yes! Izuku said. I'm so excited to have full use of both arms again. He was mostly excited because he would finally be able to be a vigilante again. He hadn't had the courage to go out since his fight with Eraserhead because he figured that the other heroes would have a similar reaction to his cast, and Eraser had probably told everyone about his broken arm by this point anyway. But he missed everyone. Sure, he didn't actually talk to most of the heroes, but it was still nice to see them when he was running away. Why did you want to keep the cast? Mom asked. I would have thought you'd want to put this whole thing behind you. The broken arm, the bullying, everything. Izuku looked at the cast, or more specifically, the signature on it, and smiled. I do, but Kaminari signed this. That makes it special. And if I hadn't broken my arm, I wouldn't have ever thought to try online school. So, yeah, I guess it wasn't all bad. Mom smiled. I'm so proud of you, Izuku. You seem so much happier since we got you out of that school. How are classes going? Izuku spent the rest of the way home rambling about what he was learning in his classes. He was doing well in all his core classes, and his programming homework was really easy with all the extra practice he had gotten by hacking the cameras and comms as a Viridian. Not that he told Mom about that, but by far his favorite classes were quirk theory. When he finished his art class, he'd ended up replacing it with a more advanced quirk theory credit so that he had 2 of them in his schedule. It was so much fun! And there's this theory that's been gaining traction in the last few years called the quirk singularity theory that basically believes that quirks will become more powerful and complex with every generation, and soon no one will be able to control them. Izuku rambled. I see where they get the idea that quirks will become more complex. There's tons of evidence, but I think it's much more likely that people's bodies will evolve to control the more powerful quirks. That's probably why it's still a fringe theory, but it's got a dedicated fan base. Mom nodded along with interest, even though Izuku knew that she didn't really know what he was talking about. It meant a lot to him that she listened, though. No one else did that for him. Izuku couldn't help but wonder if Eraser or Kaminari would listen like this if he rambled around them. He knew it was probably too much to hope for, but it would be nice. Hey, Bakugo! Ogawa waved as Katsuki walked in with the water jug. You should sit with us today, unless you're too scared or something. Katsuki wasn't a coward. Or, okay, maybe he was, but he wasn't about to let Ogawa get away with calling him one. What did you say, a-hole? I'm not scared of some crappy extras like you. Perfect. Pigtails gestured to a chair next to her. This is your seat. Katsuki huffed and dropped heavily into the offered chair, crossing his arms in a way that he hoped meant Don't talk to me if you want to live. Unfortunately, something must have gotten lost in translation because these stupid extras kept bothering him. By the way, Bakugo, I don't think I ever introduced myself, Pigtail said cheerily. I'm Haru Akiko. Katsuki filed the name away for later. Don't care. And I'm Aiko Maki, Frankenstein-looking extra said. How was your week? It was whatever, Katsuki grumbled. In truth, it was getting really annoying. He didn't know how he'd ever been stupid enough to miss all the bullying that happened at Aldera. But now that he knew to look for it and wasn't participating in it anymore, it seemed like it was everywhere and he couldn't do a thing about it. It made him feel powerless, and Katsuki hated feeling powerless. Yeah, mine too, Akiko said. My ex tried coming back into my life. I mean, he's a jerk on a good day. Don't know why I ever dated him, but he showed up out of the blue a few days ago, acting all smooth with a bouquet full of my favorite flowers. What did he want? Ogawa asked. How do you know he wanted something? Katsuki asked. Sue him. The story was more entertaining than standing against the wall. Guys like that always want something, kid, Maki said. It's one thing to genuinely try to be better, like we're supposed to be doing here. But if someone that was rude to you all of a sudden starts being nice, they're just trying to make things go their way. My sister does it all the time, Ogawa said. She'll offer to watch a movie with me or do the dishes or something, and I think that we're finally gonna get along. Then before I know it, she's trying to guilt me into taking the fall for something she did. As soon as a manipulator gets what they want, they'll go back to being an a-hole. Huh, Katsuki thought for a minute. Yeah, some of his teachers were like that with the bullied students. He'd noticed it once when his history teacher had given a kid a higher grade on an assignment as long as they didn't report the huge burn Katsuki had put on the kid's arm. At the time, he just thought the teacher was looking out for him, but he knew better now. So what did the guy want? Wanted me to break a safe he'd stolen. Akiko gestured to her pigtails, and Katsuki noticed that they were spinning like drills. My quirk is called hair drill. Basically, I can harden and rotate my hair to a point where I can puncture almost anything, even metal. Super useful for getting into things, which is how I ended up here. Katsuki nodded along, wondering what Deku would think of that quirk. He'd probably start muttering immediately and writing all sorts of gibberish in his notebook. Katsuki shut down that train of thought. He couldn't think about Deku right now, about how the nerd had actually transferred schools because of how Katsuki had treated him. There was no point in thinking about it because he wasn't ever going to see Deku again. At least not unless he ever got the balls to apologize. That sucks, Ogawa said. At least you said no, right? It was hard, Akiko grimaced. As soon as I saw him at the door with a bright pink bouquet, I thought, oh, he even remembered my favorite color. And I had to remind myself of all the ways he'd hurt me. Even though he was acting so sweet that it made me think of all the reasons I'd fallen for him in the first place. He sounds like a dick, Katsuki said. Yeah, he kinda is, Akiko laughed. But hey, if I knew that all I had to do to get you out of your shell was talk about my ex, I would have done that earlier. Katsuki scowled. Shut up, pigtail bitch. The three had the audacity to laugh at that, but thankfully he was saved by Amplifier starting the meeting. All right, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about truly believing you can change. Because it's one thing to recognize that you've done something bad, but it's another thing entirely to really know that you can change the habits and behaviors that got you arrested. That confidence is important, though. Why do you think that is? One of the villains raised their hand. If we don't actually think it's going to do anything, we're not going to put in the effort to change. Exactly. Amplifier smiled and kept talking. But Katsuki ended up lost in his own thoughts. Did he actually believe he could become a better person? That was the whole reason he was here, right? He wouldn't have volunteered for this sappy shit if he didn't actually think it would help. But then again, he had always believed he was the best, and look where that landed him. These villain extras might have made some bad decisions, but they didn't seem like bad people, not like Katsuki was. He was knocked out of his thoughts by Ogawa elbowing him in the ribs and looking at him in curiosity and concern. Katsuki responded by glaring at him, but decided he'd better actually listen to what Amplifier was saying if he didn't want to be bothered again. "We're gonna do a partner exercise for this," she said, "so turn to the person next to you. You don't have to say anything, but just think for a moment. Do you think that your partner is capable of becoming a better person?" Katsuki rolled his eyes, but turned to Ogawa, who was looking at him intensely, probably deciding that he was a lost cause. Wasn't the point of this lesson to believe in himself? Of course Ogawa could change. That wasn't even a question. The guy may have made some stupid decisions and stolen some shit, but he was trying to be better, and he wanted to turn his life around. He was a nice guy. So Katsuki didn't have any doubt that after this stupid program was over and his arrest record was wiped, Ogawa would go straight to being an upstanding citizen, unlike Katsuki, who would always be a stupid bully. All right. Amplifier activated her quirk momentarily so that she could speak loudly enough to catch all of their attention. "So, you might be wondering why I had you do that. After all, believing in someone else's potential isn't going to help you, right? Well, yes and no. The fact is that it's often a lot easier to have patience and compassion towards someone else than it is to have it toward yourself. You and your partner aren't so different. And if they can change, you can too. And now you have someone who believes in your potential. Go ahead and talk to your partner for a minute about what that exercise was like for you." Ogawa laughed. Man, did she just trick us into believing in ourselves? What the frick? Katsuki was reeling slightly. It did make sense that he would probably be harsher on himself than he would be on the others in the group. But that was because Katsuki was supposed to be the best, right? The guilt and self-hatred he was feeling couldn't be normal, could they? "For the record, Bakugo, I think she's right," Ogawa said. "I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that you can change, even if I don't know exactly why you feel like you need to. But me? All I can see is me falling back into my old habits the minute all this is over. Do you want to get punched?" Okay, that didn't come out right, but it got the point across. "You're a good person, Ogawa, so of course this stupid class is going to work on you. If you think you're going to go right back to a life of crime, you're a bigger idiot than you look." Ogawa gave a shocked laugh. "You've got an interesting way of giving inspirational speeches, man, but it works. Thanks." Katsuki huffed and turned away. Whatever. They sat in silence for a few seconds before Katsuki's brain-to-mouth filter apparently decided that it wanted to nope out. "Did you mean what you said?" Ogawa looked slightly confused. What? What did I say?" Katsuki ran a hand through his hair. "Ugh, you know, that stuff about being obvious I can change. Was that bullshit, or do you actually believe it?" Katsuki was beginning to regret saying anything. Of course, Ogawa was just saying that because it was what Amplifier told him to say. Even a blind guy would be able to see that Katsuki would always be an a-hole. "Of course I believe it, Bakugo." Ogawa looked like he thought Katsuki was an idiot. "You're what, 15? You may be a little rough around the edges, but you're not irredeemable. You're even going out of your way to become a better person. So no, I wasn't lying when I said I think you can change. You just need some time." If Katsuki was the nerd, he probably would have started crying. So it's a good thing he wasn't Deku. Maybe, just maybe, Amplifier was telling the truth about it being easier to believe in someone else. "I want to be a hero," Katsuki said impulsively. He'd said that so many times over the years, but he didn't think he'd even said it once since Deku left. so saying it felt important somehow. He hadn't felt worthy of it, but if Ogawa believed in him... Okay, Ogawa shrugged. What does that have to do with anything? Because it can't be a hero if I'm an asshole, dipshit. Ogawa laughed. So, that's why you're here? You want a bunch of villains to teach you how to be a better hero? Katsuki scowled. No, I couldn't give two flips about you extras. You just want to be a better person, Ogawa finished. I don't... Katsuki growled, look, I want to be like All Might, and All Might doesn't hurt people for fun or to make them feel better about himself. Happy? Ogawa blinked a few times in realization. You were a bully. Don't know if you can really put it in the past tense. Katsuki muttered, I haven't changed yet. End of chapter.